Hello everyone, my name is Jennifer and welcome to Best Kept Plans. Today's video is going to be a plan with me for the week of August 8th through the 14th, 2022 in my B5 Archer and Olive notebook. If you're interested in seeing that, please stick around. Here we are in my B5 notebook. I'm going to be using this layered stencil from Pinkfresh. I thought I'd use these splotch stamps, but I didn't. I'll use some numbers from that set, the August stamp sticker. I thought I'd use that floral stamp, but I didn't. I am using these Parks and Rec stamps, some Days of the Week stamps, and some large number stamps. I'm also going to be incorporating all of these different distress oxides and using my black VersaFine ink. I have been wanting to use this stencil, this layered stencil, for a really long time. I got this from Pinkfresh. They have a bunch of really awesome layered stencils, and they tend to have like coordinating stamp sets to go along with them, which is really cool. I'm starting out in the top left corner of my spread. And this is generally where I've been using a lot of deco, putting what month it is, what week of the year it is, but having deco be kind of the focus. And so I started out with the Squeezed Lemonade Distress Oxide, which is a nice bright yellow color. And I put that down for the main color of the three large florals in this stencil. Next, I have the second layer of the stencil, which is the base color to the leaves. And I'm using this bright green. It's called Cracked Pistachio. It's a little bit of a lighter green, which is what I wanted. With that down, we're going to head into the third layer of this stencil, which is some really tiny little florals. And I decided on a pink color for these tiny little florals. So I pulled out this Distress Oxide. It's called Tattered Rose. It's a very, very light pale pink, which I thought would look really pretty with the bright green and bright yellow. It also, this layer of the stencil includes a space for the centers of the three large flowers, and I ended up deciding to go along with the light pink color for that as well. Next, we're going to be adding in some detail to the three large florals, and in order to do that, I pulled in a bright orange color. Next, we're going to add some depth to all of the leaves. This is going to be like a second layer to the leaves, and so I pulled in this darker green Distress Oxide. I think it's called Lucky Clover. And then I think this next layer is the last layer. This is where we're going to add in some detail to those smaller florals, and I pulled out my picked raspberry Distress Oxide for that. We'll also be including another layer into the center of those big yellow flowers as well. So with that all down, we have used all of the layers to the stencil. And now I'm coming down to the bottom right corner of the spread where I am going to add the stencil in again. But as you can see, I only put a tiny bit of it on the actual spread. I don't want the stencil to take up the whole box on Sunday. I still want to be able to write things on Sunday. And to be totally honest, I kind of wish I would have pulled even more of the stencil off the page when all was said and done. But I'm just going through the same process of layering these stencils on top of each other and utilizing my different color Distress Oxides to create the desired effect, which is basically to have a stenciled image but with some depth to it. So right now I'm on the third layer of that stencil where I'm adding in all of the smaller light pink florals, and we'll keep going from there. I initially thought I was going to use the corresponding stamp for this stencil in my spread. I thought it would look really bold to put put down a black outline on this stencil, but after having the two stencils down, I decided against that, and the reason being is I didn't want the black outline from the deco to compete with me putting down the week of the year, and that it was the month of August. So that's why I ended up deciding against using the floral outline stamp that corresponds with this stencil. Now we are putting down the final layer to the stencil in the bottom right corner, which is adding in that darker pink color for some details to those small florals. Next, what I'm going to do is pull out my large narrow number stamps. These are from Heidi Swap. I absolutely love these number stamps. I always use them to put the week of the year. They just work really well in the size box that I have when I utilize this layout in my planner. So I'm starting out with the 3, trying to be nice and straight, going a little bit off center. And then I will be adding in the 2 because it is the 32nd week of the year, which is very exciting. Once I get that 2 down, and hopefully straight and even with the 3, I am going to pull out some other stamps so that I can start working on the week little kind of label, I guess you would call it, in the top left box, and then I think I move on to putting down some dates as well. So similar to last week, I'm kind of tucking in that week stamp under the top of the 3. I really liked the way that that looked last week, and I go with the same vibe for this week. Here I am basically starting to pull out these really narrow number stamps that I have, and I'm going to use these to put down the dates for this week. I didn't put dates down last week, and while I think it was fine and it worked out okay, I definitely wanted to include some for this week. I decided to go with the darker pink shade that I used in the stencil to put down the dates for the week, and that is called Picked Raspberry. That's one of the distressed oxides. I had to put the 9 stamp down a bit off center. I couldn't lay it right in the middle of where that left lower box is because it would have been on top of some pinks from the stamp, and I didn't want that area to get muddled, so I ended up putting it off center. I've done that in the past on a Tuesday, and I think it looks fine. Now I'm taking my 1 stamp and I'm stamping for the rest of the week because the rest of the week is dates in their teens, and I actually put the 1 stamp back, pulled out the 0, stamped that down to put 10, and then realized I needed one more 1 because Thursday is the 11th. So I'm going to pull out that number 1, put it up there on Thursday, and then move forward with 2, 3, and 4 to finish off the week. I really like using these thin numbers to do days, or I should say dates, with days of the week in front of that. I did this before. I think I did it the week that I used my jellyfish stamps, and I loved the way it came out, so I kind of had that in mind when I was putting this spread together. Now that I have all of the dates down, I'm utilizing these script font stamps from Everyday Explorer Co. To put the days of the week in. I contemplated using those large abbreviated days of the week that I stamped last week, but I wanted something a little bit different, so went with the full written out days of the week for this spread, and I do think it looks really pretty over the bright pink. Once I have the Thursday and then the Saturday down, we will be done with stamping the days of the week. I did try to get them pretty centered on the numbers and also pretty even with each other across the days. And I do think the Tuesday's up a little bit higher, but overall it looks fine. Now that I have those days of the week down, I did put in the August stamp in the top left corner of the spread. Unfortunately, it was a little bit cut off, but I tucked it into the 3 like I did last week. Again, I really liked how that whole kind of area came out in my spread last week, so decided to do something similar. Now I pulled out my sheet of Parks and Recreation stamps. This is a stamp set that I just recently got. It is from Ink Road Stamps, and I put one down in the bottom right corner, and then this Jammin' on my planner one. Couldn't resist using it. Did that in the top left. The stamp that I put in the bottom right says never half-ass 2 things, whole ass 1 thing. And that is one of my absolute favorite quotes from Parks and Recreation. That is something that Ron Swanson said. I absolutely love the show Parks and Rec, and I love Ron Swanson, so I couldn't resist. Now I'm using my Micron to just put in some lines to separate the boxes for this spread. I'm not going over anything that's already been stamped down. That's kind of the look I like to go for. Hope you enjoyed this plan with me. As always, please be safe.